morning. Well, it's morning to me. It's 5:25 a.m. Um, so you want to make something in Second Life, and you want to learn how to do it in Blender. If you watch my previous tutorials, I got two of them up there. Um, and you got them all done. You should be ready to start digging in. This is the default screen right here. All I did was hit the escape key to get rid of the splash screen, and it automatically starts with a cube. So first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and hit X to delete that cube. Now first thing I want to show is, you see as I scroll in, no matter how far in I scroll, this cursor is always centered, but should be centered if you follow my tutorial. Right on the middle of the X, which is the red, and the Y, which is the green. And if you have any doubt, you can always look down here, X, Y, and Z, and we'll scroll back out. Okay, and I'm gonna come to that in a minute and show you why. So I use hotkeys. So for me, it'd be Shift A, but you could also go to Add Mesh, and come up to Cube. And you notice that again, it is right there where the cursor is at. That's the dead center. So you will a lot of times find yourself left clicking off to the side, and you'll be like, oh crap, what do I do? What's going to happen if I hit Shift A, and let's say I add another cube? You see it's going to put it right there. So wherever your cursor is at, it's going to do a plane here. It's going to res the object where that cursor is at. So let me undo. How do you fix that? You will come across this so often, you'll be like, oh crap, I gotta fix this. Well, while in object mode, if you press the Shift and the Charlie key, you notice it puts it right back in the center. Okay, so that's Shift plus C. What we can do right here is you can press the R for rotate, and you see you can rotate this, or you can even constrain it. Say I press R and Z, it's going to rotate around that Z axis. You see it's kind of highlighted right here with the blue. I can hit the X and rotate it this way. It's called constraining it. And the same thing with Y, you can constrain it. Now this works the same way. I'm going to hit the escape key to undo it, or to escape from it. You would right click when you got it where you want it. Now we're still in object mode, and this will also work in edit mode. The thing to keep in mind is that there is a slight difference between rotating, scaling, and so on in object mode versus in edit mode. I'll get to that in a second. So we can hit the S as in Sam, and we can scale by dragging it away. Going closer, we can constrain it to, say, the Z, up and down, the Y, and the X. And again, left click and it would say, so it says scale X, let's bring it on out. Doesn't matter if you go off screen, and left click and boom. Let's undo that, and scale, rotate, and G for grab. And again, you can move it anywhere you want, or you can constrain it to the Z, X, and Y. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit escape to release it. Excuse me. So you can do some things. The thing to keep in mind is this usually is global, meaning if you have more than one prim on there and you try to do it in object mode, it affects everything that's on there. So that's the difference between that and doing an edit mode. And let me give you an example. I want to, with that cursor still selected and right there, I'm going to hit Control A and add another cube. And you go like, okay, well I don't see it. It's because it's right on top. Let's say we try to grab it, or I'll just click on this red arrow on the X, and you see that it's you still can't see it, right? Or I can grab on the Y and slide it over. Well, where is it? Well, we know it's there because you see cube 1 and cube 0.001. So hit Control Z, put that back in the middle. You know that it's there, but you can't seem to, it's moving everything. Same thing if you try to rotate, scale, doesn't matter. It affects everything within. If you was to go in edit mode, you can either come down here and click edit, or I use a hotkey which is tab and edit. And if you try to grab it right now, you can separate it. See, it's right there. Okay, so that's the difference between rotating, scaling, moving within object versus in edit mode. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the I'm going to hit the tab key. Let's go back to here. Let's press new, which should be Control N. You can hit Control N and do it that way as well. And let's go put a new cube. Let's delete that. Let's go Control A, and let's go ahead and put a cube down. Now, I should have showed you something else. Okay, let's duplicate that by hitting Shift D, and we're going to constrain it to the Y-axis, and we'll slide it over. Okay, now you notice that you got cube and cube 0.001. The one that's highlighted is the one that you are currently on. Doesn't matter if it's the camera, see there it is, the light source, it's the lamp, it's highlighted. Well, you have multiple pieces of geometry. Let's hit Shift D and we'll constrain this to the X value and move it over here. And let's do it one more time. We'll say Shift D and we'll constrain it to the Z and move it up here. Now what we have a bunch of geometry, but they're all the same name with the exception of the numbers. You can actually change these. So you left click on here, or you can right click on here, right click and come down to rename. So we can call this default, and that now separates it. Notice the name was changed. Same thing here. We can left click up here or right click. By left clicking up here, it automatically, you can see which one it is. I mean, whichever way. Rename, and we'll say cube duplicate, and you can name it whatever you want. Now when you rename them, it starts going in alphabetical order. So you notice that the default dropped below this one because it's in alphabetical order, and the rest of them are up here. So that's something to keep in mind when you're renaming, is that it puts it in automatically in alphabetical order. Okay, so let's go back to Control N, new, and we're back to here, hit X, and we're going to delete, Control A, and we're going to add a new cube. So we're back to our default. First thing you want to notice over here also is that here are your I don't know what you would actually call it, but you can change it, and it has to be done right away by left clicking on these arrows, or you can click in here and say I want to make it 5.0 meters, and you notice it changes. The first thing, as soon as you move this or do something else, let's just hit R and rotate and left click, it changes. So once you've done anything to that geometry, you can no longer come back over here and resize it the way we just did, because it's going to show you the last action that you just took. Okay, hit Control Z, and now we're going to start again, and we're going to mesh, we're going to put in a cube. Okay, now I'm going to come here again, notice it came back, I'm going to put it back down to a 1, and there we go. Okay, so now that we got that, we're going to hit the tab key, we're going to go into edit. I guess I should show you one more thing before we do that. Let's go back to object mode, let's hit Shift D, duplicate it, and say we put it on the Y, left click, we'll place it. Okay, so you got a bunch of geometry out here, including your camera and your light. You can hide some of these because sometimes they'll get in the way. Let's say we grab this one right here, and we're just going to grab on the Y, and we're going to slide it in a little bit so that they're overlapping, just for an example. And you want to work on this one, but this piece right here is in the way. Well, what do? Because even if you go to edit, you see it's still there. Okay, it's still there. So how can you work in that? Well, it's very simple. With the one selected, you can either hit the H as in Henry, which will hide that one, which is not what we want to do. So I'll bring that back with Alt H. Instead, you can press the Shift H, which will hide everything else. Another way of doing that is by coming up over here and clicking on the little eyeballs. Now you notice as I did so, let me just pull this down a little bit here. Come on. As I did so, things became visible. So that's what this is. You can hide the different ones to get them out of view. Again, I like hotkeys, so I'm going to hit Alt H and bring everything back. Okay? So I wanted to show you about hiding stuff. Alt A to select, deselect. A. Now let's hit Control N. Let's start with a new file. Let's grab this. Let's delete it, and let's hit Shift A, and we're going to add a new cube. Okay, now going into edit mode. And again, like right here, you can go ahead and just hit the eyeball, or you can hit Shift H. Well, no, we'll do it this way. Okay, notice the first thing that you notice is that the object is already highlighted. So let's hit A to deselect. Now you have what's called these vertices right here. That's all these little dots that make up the points of the geometry. You can switch between them by hitting right here, which is a line select or edge select, and then you have face select as well. So those are the three options. You can also change by hitting the Control Tab key and change that way if you wanted to. Control Tab, let's go back to vertice, and it'll keep it highlighted, and now you're back in the vertice mode. A to deselect, A to select all. So with these vertices or edges or lines, you can manipulate each one of them. So say if I just hit the G for grab, and I can pull it out, move it around however I want to. I can constrain it, say in this case to the Y axis, the X axis, or the Z axis, and I'm going to left click to set it. Okay, let's say I want to grab a couple of them, so I'll grab that one, I'll press and hold the Shift key and right click again on the other. Remember to right click, this is different. And I'm going to grab, and I'm going to pull this out, and I'm just going to kind of set it over there. Just to show you that this is how you grab and manipulate your vertices, edges, faces, whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's undo that, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and we're back to where we was at. Okay, so I'll Control Tab, and let's go to Edge Select. Another thing that you can do, and this works with all three, whether you're working with vertices, edges, or faces, by right-clicking, you select the item. By holding down Shift, you can select more items. See how that goes? Okay. A, to deselect. Now let's say you're in edge mode and you want to select this whole outline right here. How would you do it? Well, you can press Alt and Shift to get your second and just work your way around. This works better when you have multiple lines, and I'll show you that in a second. Let's also say, let's go to face mode. The same thing works here. Right click, you can hold Shift, right click to select the different faces that you want to work on. Let's say, for example, go back to front view. Let's say you got this face, but it's not doing the one that you want behind it. Well, you can always hold the Shift key and select the one behind it, and then go back to, say, our front view. Remember, I'm working in ortho. And continue on. But there's another way to do it. If you hit the Zeta or Z, you can come to wireframe. Now, if you look at wireframe, that's exactly what it is. And it doesn't matter which one you're on, vertices, edges, faces. You can see right through it. It's just basically a wire diagram of the geometry that you have. So, okay, let's say I want this face and the one behind it. I can hold down the Shift and grab it right behind. And you can do it the same way. The problem is say like you click here. Now which one did I grab? Well, I grabbed the back one. And it can get kind of complicated and tricky, but that's one way of working on it. Let's hit the Z. Let's go back to solid. Deselect all. Another way, an easier way, if you just want to grab and be able to grab both all the way through there, we're going to hit the one. Let's come right down here to this little box. Now it's the one right next to the right of your face select. This one right here, and we're going to click it one time. Now if I scroll around, you can still see your edges and everything now. So that means that you can see through the object, but it's not in wireframe mode. So now if I press select, it didn't do it. Select and then press shift and select again, it should grab, and it did. Another way, let's say I hit C as in Charlie, and I can scroll back on my mouse wheel to make it bigger or smaller, and I left click right there, and then I right click to the side. Now it's got both of them. Okay. Let's deselect. Let's go back into our front. Let's go ahead and go to vertex mode. So let's say different ways of selecting. I just showed you one, which is right clicking each one, shift to right click, and shift alt should select all of them, just like that. Okay. Another way of doing it would be what's called a lasso tool. So by holding down the control button and your middle mouse button, your left mouse button, you can control which vertices you want to select by whatever is up inside. Okay, so again, and you can just keep going around until you get what you want. Now to undo, you can hit the control and the middle mouse button. Whoops, hit the no, that works with the circle select. Okay, never mind. Let's say we're doing circle select. Okay, so we got, you can scroll the size of however you want. If you want to make it really big, left click one time, it grabs everything that's within the circle. Or you can make it smaller and smaller until it's really minute, like those that want to work with jewelry. And get your selection that way. Now if you hit the control and the middle mouse button, wait a minute, what's going on here? Let's scroll this in. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Not the control, just use your middle mouse button and you can deselect. Again, you can make it as small as you want or as big as you want, and you can drag and hold and deselect everything you want or simply select. Again, come back in. Okay, and then hit the middle mouse button and crap. I guess I can't. That's what I get for making a tutorial so early in the morning. Okay, so we'll turn this back off. No, actually I want to leave it back on. One other way of selecting is with the B or box, or also known as border select. And we'll put this back in the front with the see-through turned on. I can hit B, and you notice the crosshairs. I can come across and select everything. Because I have it turned on, it automatically selects everything. Go back here, turn A off. Now if we turn that off and we hit box select again and we do it, it's only going to grab those vertices, edges, or faces that are in view. So if you're off on an angle like this and I hit box select and I come across like this, it's going to grab those that are in view that it can grab, not the ones behind it. Okay. Hitting A and we'll deselect. Let's go ahead and let's hit A to select everything. Let's hit scale, and we're going to kind of scale it down a little bit. Mine by default, I have mine set to metric right here, but you can set it to whatever you want. Each one of these lines basically is 1 meter. So right now I'm at like what, a half a meter? Yeah, I'm at like a half a meter because I'm at half of that. So you can scale it. Again, you can scale in certain areas. You can say, let's go scale S and Y, constrain it to the Y values, and I can make it as big as I want, but it's not going to affect anything else. Let's scale again, this time on the X, and I can make it as big or as small as I want, down to where they touch, make it paper thin. Okay, let's undo. Now undo one more time just to make it back to our original size. What if, and again you can do it on the Z axis, it doesn't matter. What if you want to scale on two of the axes at one time? Let's say, for example, we want to scale on the X and the Y, and again, by looking down here, you can see where they are in relation to where your view is. So if I rotate this around, you notice this rotates around. So if you get confused as a beginner and say, oh yeah, which one is which, just look right down here, it's got it labeled out for you. So let's say, how do I scale? Let's say I want to scale on X and Y without it affecting the Z. Well, that's simple. We'll hit S for scale without moving the mouse, and we'll go ahead and press Shift and Z. Now you notice the line just changed. The lines changed. The red and the green are now highlighted. Now I can make it all I want, and it's not going to change the Z value or the Z value. And that's how you can do it a couple sides at one time. Okay, let's go back, Control Z. Same thing with rotate. We can rotate in 3D. We can constrain it to the X value, the Y value, or the Z value. And left click to set. Control Z to undo. So you got scale, rotate, you got grab, so I can move it anywhere I want, or I can constrain it to the Z, the X, or the Y, and left click whenever you're done. Hit Control Z will put it back. Another thing you can do, let's deselect, and let's just, for simplicity's sake, we're going to go with a face. I want to go with the number 1. Just grab this face real quick and rotate it around. Now you have what's called extruding. Oh yeah, you can scale individual too. You see what I'm doing? You can scale. Let's grab this one. Let's rotate, and let's constrain it to the Y. And you can manipulate the different vertices and edges individually as well if you wanted to. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Put it back. A to deselect. Now let's say you want to. We're going to get into extruding. By tapping the E key, you can extrude it out if you want. In this case, we're working with the face, so it's going to go on the Z or the Y axis. And left click, grab this one, extrude. And what you're doing basically is you're just creating more geometry. Okay. And if you're curious of how much you got, if you look up here, you got 16 total, but you got 4 of them selected, which is all I have. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Edges, you got 28 edges, but I got 4 of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And faces, we got 14 faces, which is what we're working on, but I only have 1, which is this one. So you're creating more geometry. Let's say I go to the line mode, I grab this line right here, I hit extrude. Now I can come out on an angle, I can come out in any different direction I wanted to. But what if you wanted to constrain it? Well, let me hit escape, and let's use this one for example. Hit extrude, and I can pull it out, but I want to constrain it to the Y. So I hit the the Y button, and now wherever I extrude it at, it's going to be constrained strictly to that. It's the same thing if I want to do X, do Z, and come up. Will this work, going back to the Y, will this work with multiple? Well, let's try. Control Z, and I can move it, but it does not really work because I can pull it up. So no, it will not. Okay, let's hit the escape key, and now we'll extrude it on out, and again hit the Y. Because you already created the geometry by extruding, it's there. The way to undo that is Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z until you know you got past that. So let's do vertices. Let's grab those two, and we're going to hold the shift. We're going to grab these. We're going to grab this. No, you know what? We're going to do 3 of them. Hit the E key and extrude. Of course, you know you're going, whichever. So you can either come out if you want to. Left click, hit extrude again. We'll come out, but this time we'll control it to the Z, and we'll come up. And no, we're not, because that's not going to look good. But anyway, just for simplicity, we'll just come on out and grab, and we can move it into position. And notice it only grabbed those vertices that I have selected and extruded them out. Again, is making more geometry. You follow me so far? Now again, we're going to hold down the shift key, the middle mouse button, and we're going to pan. Middle mouse button rotates. Okay, and you can scroll in and out to zoom in and out. Pan over, scroll in, and we can scale this down if you want it to, or whatever. All you're doing is making more and more geometry. The more complex your geometry is, the more your item will take shape. Okay, so let's say you want to delete these. Let's hit the X key, and now what you got is vertices, edges, faces, only edges and faces, and only faces. Then you have some other ones like dissolve, which we'll get into how you dissolve and what's the difference between dissolving something and actually deleting it. You can do a limited dissolve, edge collapse, or edge loose. In this case, we're just going to delete the vertices, which takes care of all of that. All the vertices that were attached to that one, which included all the edges or lines and faces. So let's grab this one here, here, X, and we're going to delete those vertices and so on. Again, you can use your box tool. You can use your C for select. You can use whichever one you want to do this. Alright, let's go back to our object. We'll hit X and delete the whole thing. Shift A, we're going to add a new cube in. Go back to edit mode. We're just basically starting over. Another thing that you can do is a W. And we're going to go to subdivide. Click it one time, and you notice it went from one face all the way around to 4 faces. And you can change this value right here if you wanted to. And every time you click on it, you notice it increases. And if you look up here, you can see you're now up to 98 vertices versus when you were down to 1, which was only 26. It just multiplies. And if you hit Control Z to undo, you're back down to 8. Another way of doing this, if you want just to manually control it, would be to hit Control R, Shift R, Shift R. This is called an edge loop. And you can scroll and make as many cuts as you want. To divide that up, left click to enable, and then you can slide it around. At this point, you can just hit the escape key and lock it right there where it is by default. And again, you'll notice you've increased your vertices, but you've only done it on this side here, which at this particular point would be the X. It has not done it all the way around, which is different from the W key, which adds it everywhere. So that's different. Control Z. You can do the same thing by pressing Shift R. Oh, come on now. Control R, I'm sorry. And you can select which way you want this to go by moving your mouse. Notice the pink line. Excuse me. Notice the pink line. As you move it across the edges, you'll see it changes to which direction it's going. Okay, you see that? So let's say I want to go there. I can increase by rolling my mouse wheel one time. We'll left click, and we'll left click again to set it without moving it, or you can just hit the escape once you have that first left click in. And now it's created some geometry this way. but still there's none here. So you can control that, and that's called an edge loop. Edge loop, which when you get to working with it, like if I hit the W, edge loops right here, and you can see the different things that you can do with edge loops. Now, if you have not watched the second tutorial on setting up your user interface, Loop Tools is turned off by default, and you will not be able to do these. Okay. What else is there? Oh, okay. Let's say your manipulator. Well, first, if you hit the space bar one time, you can type in. This is called a search. So let's go loop and hit, and you'll see as I hit the space the different options. So you can do a search for a particular action, and it'll bring it up here by hitting the space bar. Okay. Hit escape. Now, if I hit control and space, that's different. Now you notice that I've got manipulator, rotate, scale, and translate. I can turn on and off the little thing by doing that, which comes in real handy because sometimes that manipulator will get right in the way of what you're looking for or trying to grab. And so control spacebar, and we can turn it right back on. Another way of doing it is down here. You can click here, turn it on. You have there's your rotate, your manipulator, and your scale. Okay, you can rotate and then grab. Okay, so put all this back how we had it to our original cube by hitting Control Z. Another difference is working in global versus local. Okay, sometimes you'll want to work in local, which is slightly different than your global. But for now, I like you to go ahead and stay in global. So let's go ahead and say we select all. Let's go ahead and hit subdivide. Let's go ahead and give it a little more. We'll go to 2. Okay, we'll give it a little more geometry. Let's go to our edges. A to deselect. This is something I was talking about earlier. You can hit right mouse button on the edge, and you can hit Shift and Alt, and notice it'll grab that whole line. Whereas if I just hit Shift, it's only going to grab one line. And by right clicking and holding the Shift down, you can undo. If you hold the so you have one, you hold the Shift and the Alt button together and right click, it'll grab the whole line to the point, which is a lot faster than having to do Shift click, Shift click, Shift click. That's what I was mentioning when I was in vertex mode. This really works good in edge select. This is called edge selecting. And then from there you can go ahead and scale or extrude or whatever you want to do. A to select, deselect. Okay. And again, we can scale this really down. Like I know one person that's watching these videos and she wants to do jewelry where you're going to get really far down small. Okay, and start working there. Again, it all depends on how big that particular geometry you want it to be. So right now, all I want you to do is go ahead and learn how to switch between vertices, edges, faces, how to work through so that you can see the ones in the back, and also how to work in wireframe. Okay, so I want you to learn how to work in those, get a little practice in. We'll turn this back off. How to select multiple faces, how to extrude them, how to constrain them to different angles or go free falling. I want you to learn to extrude. I want you to learn how to grab, constrain. Just kind of get the feel for how this works. Okay, that's what I'd like you to do. On the next tutorial, we'll go in even further into depth But at this point, this will give you the eye to say, hey, I can actually do something now. Extrude this along here and so on. There's a lot more that you can do with this. So much more. I mean, let's hit, you can add in more stuff by hitting Shift A. And let's say I want to add in a cylinder. Okay, and we're going to move, well, before we move that, remember you got to change this. So we got this at 32. I can click up in here and reduce that to 16. And notice it changed. I can grab and move it off so it's not on top of this here. Remember, you can come, oh, this is part of the cube because we're working in edit mode. So this particular item, you cannot rename it. You can only do that in object mode. But we can also come in. I want to show you, I talked to you about deleting. So let's say I want to come in, let's say I want to delete that face, hit X and face, and we'll delete that face. Same thing here, X, delete face, and now you have pretty much a see-through cylinder. Okay. We're going to hit tab and come back to object mode. And again, now if you try to move, it's going to move the whole thing. Okay. So that's just something to get started with. Learn how to extrude, learn how to select, learn how to work in the various modes, wireframe, see-through, learn to work in the different camera angles, make sure everything's in ortho. There's different ones that you can work. Just don't do anything with these. Just stay strictly with mesh. Circle, I wouldn't worry about circle right now. Because I mean you can make this cylinder as a circle and work it up, but there's easier ways to do that. Just kind of work with cube, plane, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, and torus. So work with those. I mean, if you want to work with circle, we can. I can throw it right there. Let's go back into edit mode. Extrude on the Z. Extrude. No, you can't do it. Okay, so I take that back. You used to be able to. Again, I'm working version 2.6. You may be working with a different version. So try not to use circle. Circles are used for a lot of your fine tuning, where some people may use a Bezier curve or a path. Some people use circles to define a particular geometry, but that's plenty for you to do right there. So learn those things, and remember, you can always hit Control N to restart back to your default. You can also always hide things if you want with the eyes or with the H command. Oh, I don't have a select. There we go. H. I was like, why is it not working? Alt H to bring it back. Shift H to hide everything else except what we have hidden. Alt H to bring that back. A to select everything. A to deselect. How to rename. Duplicate is Shift D. And you can constrain that to a line if you want to. So I would like you to work with those, and then we'll get your next video going. Till then, have fun.